Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 5-time author, and I teach people how to write and publish powerful, thought-provoking nonfiction and memoir without overthinking or getting caught up in extreme overwhelm. Because your story and message matter, and it's about to become someone's very favorite resource. For more book writing, publishing, and how the heck do I move through this glitch tips and solutions, and plenty of free resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. Hello and welcome to this next episode of Write the Damn Book Already. This is actually an unplanned episode. I'm usurping the episode I was going to record today because I want to tell you about my experience with Reels Gone Wild. I don't know, it sounds really fun to say. I had a reel go, I think can be said to be verifiably viral in the last 24 hours. It's got, as of right now, 1.2 million views on Instagram, 9,974 likes, 6,944 shares. So I think that in most spaces, yes, I appreciate that there are people whose reels have higher numbers than that, and there are people who have lower, and we can all dispute until the day is done what actually constitutes viral, much as we can all dispute what actually constitutes best-selling. But this was by far and away the most, A, unexpected, and B, ridiculous experience I have had with anything on social media, air quote, taking off. And I've spent the better part of the last, 12 hours really thinking about it. And the story's still unfolding as it were. But 24 hours in, I think that the chaos is probably starting to dissipate, as it does. Everything has a shelf life of about 5 minutes in this world anymore. And so I think it's fair at this point to kind of say, these are the things that I've learned and gleaned and can share from this. And also, I want to be extremely clear that this is my experience. This is just my experience. This is not me saying, if you have a reel go viral, this is what is going to happen to you, or this is how you are going to feel, or this is how much money you are going to make. Trust me, you could have a reel go half as viral as mine did and make a whole lot of money, or more money than I did, which wouldn't be hard because as of right now, I've made $0 off of this. And it's not about the money, even though that's what so many people talk about all the time. And I get it. I understand that people are looking for tips and tricks and shortcuts to raise their visibility and their credibility and reach more people, which in turn allows them to make more money to do more good things in the world. I totally get it. That's great. But it's not always about only the money, and the money doesn't always come immediately. So let's chat about this. All right. So I gave you the stats in the beginning of where we were. Let me give you a little bit of the backstory of how this reel came to be. One of the things that I love about this experience is it allows me to walk my walk and talk my talk, because I have been preaching for years to my audience and my clients and my friends and random people on the street that for me, it's always been about quality, not quantity. So it's never been about, I need a certain number of followers. And I know that a lot of people who are working on books or want to write books and they're reaching out to agents and they're hearing, listen, you need a platform of fill in the blank, 20,000, 30,000, a million, whatever it is. And so that becomes their strategies. I need to get those numbers. And in most cases, those numbers don't really mean anything. And I can now say unequivocally, based on my experience, that they don't necessarily mean, it's not that they don't mean anything, but they don't necessarily mean what we think. So when you're on the receiving end, not me, but you, when you hear about something that's happened to someone, their reel went viral. They hit New York Times. They got on Good Morning America. We make assumptions about what that's going to do for them on the backside. It's not always correct. So I think it's important to hear both sides. And it's important to recognize that when people are saying, oh my gosh, I did this and it was so easy, and I can teach you how to do it for $47. It's important to recognize that when someone is looking to monetize something, we need to be more discerning in what that person has actually done consistently. If someone, we saw this a lot in the crypto realm where all these courses were coming out on how to make money with crypto, and now it's how to make money with AI. And I'm not saying any of that is bad, to be clear, but instead of just taking one example that someone's giving and saying, I did this once and now I can teach you how to do it too. I mean, if that works for you, that's great. But be more discerning in looking into with what level of consistency are they having that kind of air quote success? Because flash in the pan is difficult to, I couldn't replicate this right now. It has just happened, I don't think, if I tried. So let me give you the backstory. Monday was a Monday. It was a Mondayest Monday ever. It was just a weird day. And later in the afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock, one of my closest friends, Kate, DM'd me a reel on Instagram. It was from a guy, his handle is, and I'll link it in the show notes, but it's Stand Up Dylan. And he's an aspiring stand-up comedian. He is also a realtor in his, that's his real job, air quotes around real. And it was a reel about him driving through Starbucks and pronouncing the word croissant, a bakery item that many of us order and many of us pronounce in various ways, depending on, all kinds of things. So Kate sent me this reel because we have an inside joke about the pronunciation of this word. And she thought I would think it was funny, and I did. So I went and I looked up Stand Up Dylan and I watched some of his other videos and I thought he was absolutely hilarious. And I noticed he only had 554 followers. And I thought, well, that is strange because he's so funny. So I screenshot his account and I shared it to my story. And I just said, listen, he had 554 followers. He's hilarious. I got him to 555. Can I count on my community of 9 to maybe give him another 2 or 3? Like, I was just trying to share him. And I think, 20 people saw that story. Not a big deal. And so one person messaged me and said, I just got him to 556, and it was like, okay, cool. This is great. Because that's how we all do it, by the way. Dylan, me, you, one person at a time. After that, not long after that, Dylan messaged me. He DM'd me and he said, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I just can't believe you only have 554 followers. And he said, my account got hacked 2 weeks ago. So I had to start all over and I'm rebuilding. And I thought, well, that really sucks. I know a lot of people who have had their accounts hacked. Another good reason to stay fairly quiet and anonymous, in my opinion, but they've had to start all over or fight with Instagram or Facebook or whatever to get reinstated. So I thought, God, that sucks. And so in that moment, as he and I were exchanging messages and we went back and forth, multiple times, super nice guy, I thought something just came into my head and I have no idea where it came into my head from to do one of those weird duet reels. I've never a duet. I don't know what the heck it's even called. I've never done one. I don't think, if I did, it's not anywhere in recent memory. I've seen them. I know what they are. I've always thought they're a little weird. Like, why do I want to watch someone's reaction to someone else's thing? Like, I've never really gotten it, but okay. But for whatever reason, I was thinking about a way to share him to my community of, 12 again, and how I could post it. And I think in my mind, the only two options were to repost his original reel, which I would have to download a new app for, or to just make a duet, because that way I could just quickly share it. So that's what I did. And I didn't even, as complete evidence, if you know me at all, I've said I have no strategy, or I have very little strategy. As in my business, I have a strategy to a degree. Social media, no. I post kind of what I want to post when I want to post it. If I feel inspired, I post something. It's just very willy-nilly. I don't look at when most people are looking at my feed. I don't assess and strategize times and days to post. I don't have a spreadsheet of education versus entertainment versus engagement. There's nothing wrong with having that. I think it's a personality type, and that's not the personality type that I have. So I don't want to do a content strategy. It makes me feel not good to think of having to sit down and strategize all that. If that excites you, my God, go forth and do it. This is not me saying that a content strategy is wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I wish I were someone who could do something like that. It would probably make me feel more organized and structured. I'm just not. So there was no strategy behind this duet. If there were, trust me, I would have had better lighting. I would have put on mascara. I would have made sure that somewhere in my caption, I mentioned book writing. I would have had a CTA, like all the things that people tell you should do. I did none of those things. My caption is completely like, I found this, it's hilarious. I now want this bakery item. Go follow Dylan. Like it had nothing to do with anything. I post it and it just goes and it doesn't stop. I thought it would stop. It's starting to slow down now about 30 hours in. I thought it would stop much more quickly than it did. It didn't. I could not even fathom what was happening. And so I started taking lessons from it because I was like, if nothing else, I believe and I've said for many years that everything that happens, good or bad, also comes with it and brings with it an opportunity to learn something about myself. Not to push it out on or project it on other people, but to learn something about myself. So I was like, all right, let's get started figuring out what the lessons are and the insights are from this. And saying, I want to preface all this by saying I'm not complaining about having this happen at all, which I don't think will come through, but just in case it does. And number two, I'm also not saying it's not a big deal. That would be like saying hitting the New York Times bestseller, oh, it's no big deal. Because I know how many people I've talked to in the last 24 hours who have been like, I kind of wish I could just do it. Like just go viral once just to say I've done it. Like if and when I would love to hit the New York Times because that would mean that I was legitimately selling a lot of books, which is not about the financial aspect of it. It's about the fact of my message reaching a lot of people, especially with my latest book, Write the Damn Book Already. Shameless little plug there. But so it is a big deal. But it's not a big deal in the sense that I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I'm now a millionaire. I now have 632 new clients. I now feel so much happier and better about myself. It's not that. It's a big deal because it provided the opportunity for me to say yes to a whole lot of insights and lessons and conclusions. So here we go. Number one, sometimes 12 likes. So if you go and you look at this reel that now has 1.2 or whatever it is now, million views. If you look at the reel that I posted that same morning, 8 hours prior, it had, at the time that I posted this reel, 144 views. That was it. If you go back, you can look at all my view numbers. They're in the low hundreds. There are a couple that have crossed the 1,000 mark, but for the most part, they're in the low hundreds and likes are commensurate. They're in the lows. They're low. Sometimes 12 likes on a post or a reel or whatever brings in an interested and with any luck, kind new subscriber or an invested follower, someone who wants to engage with you, learn more about you, get to know you better as a human being. While 9,974 likes, which is what it was at the last time I checked, brings nothing but a number. At least not immediately. We have this idea because there are all these statistics that float around, like what's the average percentage of conversion rate? How many eyes do you have to get on something in order for one person to opt in or one person to buy? And in this case, you would think 9,974 likes and well over 6,500 shares, one of those people would have signed up for something free that I offer, a book writing guide or a workshop or whatever. As of now, and again, it's been 30 hours, and I think that the brunt of what's going to happen, whether it's followers or subscribers or whatever would have happened, not one. Literally zero. Now, that's just an observation. I'm not making it mean anything. But I am putting it out there as the truth because of my experience. Because when people think, oh my God, 9,970, she must have gotten at least 150 opt-ins. I didn't. That doesn't mean that the next person who has the same experience won't get 300 opt-ins. They very well might, but I didn't. Second learning. Many of the comments, in fact, not many, most of the comments that were posting on my feed were so mean that number one, I deleted them because it's my feed. So I am open and I love conversation. You're allowed to disagree with me respectfully all day. I have 5 kids. They do it. People do it. I love it. It allows me to have an open mind about what I think and why I think it. I'm very willing to say, ooh, I changed my perspective on that. You changed my perspective on that. Respectful dialogue within a community and a respectful community is one of my favorite things. Outright just coming out and attacking someone in my space, in my community I'm not here for. So I will just delete. Like my delete, block, ignore game, very strong. So at first I just started deleting. Then I started to notice the people who were posting because they saw the traction that the post was getting and they wanted their comment in there because they know that people read comments. And so they were trying to deliver value in the comments. I just dismissed them. That's a feature that I learned from my friend Drew Linsalata, where you can dismiss. It's not block, it's not delete, but it's dismiss. And from that point forward, the only people who will see those comments are you and the commenter. So they're basically shouting into the Grand Canyon. Fine. So I just dismissed those. After a few hours, I turned off comments completely because I wasn't getting anything valuable. Nobody was engaging in respectful discourse, and people were just being really mean. They were saying mean things about me, about my appearance, about Dylan, about completely unrelated, just mean things about different cultures. It was just mean. And I didn't want to have to follow it in order to delete, dismiss, block, report. I didn't even want to deal with it. I didn't want that energy in my day. So I just turned off comments. But I left everything else going because I was running a bit, at this point, an unintentional experiment. And I wanted to see what would happen. So look, there is always going to be someone who says something that's illogically unkind. It is almost never about you. And while my delete and block game is really strong, strangers saying horrible things to or about you just sucks. And I'm 50. So I can only imagine how much this is affecting 13, 14, 15, 16, and even early 20-year-old boys and girls. That is heartbreaking to me. And it's an entirely different conversation that is being had and I think needs to be had more and more. So the commenting part of that experience was not one that I chose to sustain and allow to continue to grow. So I just stopped it. The third thing, I made a new friend, which is Dylan. Talk about the cream rising to the top. Like, what a fun person. And he's not local to me. So there's no way I would have met him at my local coffee shop or at Target or whatever. And we have gone back and forth a couple times over DM. I messaged him late last night and said, I have no idea how you're doing this because I went and looked in the original reel that he posted that I did the duet of now has 2.3 million views and an absolute crap ton of comments. And he replied and said, I can't keep up. Like I haven't even had time. Again, he's a realtor by day. He coaches realtors. So this is kind of his dream, his side. I don't know. I haven't asked him specifically. These are my words, not his. So I'm not trying to own his experience here, but this is something he's doing on the building, and it's not his full-time thing. And he does something else during the day that he's paid to do. And so he's not out looking. And I said, well, maybe just don't, because some of them are not good. So in alignment with that, a few of the people who I shared the original reel with, not my duet, but the original reel, they laughed real hard. And spreading joy is my favorite thing to do besides making up new words. So that was a benefit and I appreciate that. Next, this is really interesting. So I have the screenshots to prove all of what I'm saying here, but the reach outside my followers. So before this all started, I had 2,300 and some followers. The reach outside my followers is right now 1.2 million. So that's the full extent of the reach. 100% of the reach was outside my followers. So none of my community was shown this reel, which I think is odd. And I think, I don't spend a lot of time trying to understand the algorithm. I don't care because I know it's changing all the time and I don't have time to keep up with it. It feels like strategy and I'm just done. I just do what I want to do. But I think it's interesting. You could make the argument that that's wonderful because it exposed me to 1.2 million new people. And on the flip side, I'm trying to build a community. So if I post something that 1.2 million people see and that, almost 10,000 people like, why wouldn't Instagram want the people who have already expressed an interest in being in community with me to see that? I don't understand that, but I thought it was interesting. Now, when it comes to, okay, so of those 1.2 million people who I've now been exposed to, how many of them came and followed me? Because you do have to actually click, much like I did on Dylan. When you see a reel that's funny, if you want to know more about the creator, you click on their handle and you go to their profile. And then if you choose, you click follow, right? And so how many people did that? And how many people followed? And then how many of those people perhaps started engaging with some of my other content? Now, I've already mentioned that so far, none of those people have opted into anything, free or otherwise. I have about 131 now new followers. I have no idea who they are. I don't know if they're robots. I don't know if they're engaging. What I do know is that there's a small uptick on my activity on my Instagram account. So the reel that I mentioned earlier that I posted that morning that only had like 100 and some views, it's gone. It was at 225 views when this whole thing started. And now it's at 477. So small uptick in views there. And it went from 12 likes to 17. So like, yay? And again, of those 131 new followers so far, if even one of them is not a robot and is interested in book writing or storytelling or entrepreneurship or just engaging in a healthy, non-toxic, fun, community-driven way, amazing. That's super amazing and grateful. And I love that. And it all happens one at a time. And that's the one that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for the other 130. Also, I have a screenshot of this part I find really funny. This reel is getting 53,429% more plays than any of my last 5 reels, which is just beyond. You guys, the reel has nothing to do with book writing. It has nothing to do with honestly anything. It has nothing to do with being kind. Like if I made a reel about being kinder to people or obviously book writing or doing something nice, like whatever, and that went viral, that would be amazing. That would feel like a contribution in some way. This, if it brings people joy and it makes them laugh and brings joy to their day, and then that joy compels them to get off the couch or get out of bed or whatever, that's wonderful. And I'm not going to deny that for 1 second. It's hard to know. That's not a tangible result. It's hard to know really how it affects people. And I'll be honest that it feels very weird to be so seen for something so obscure when I work day in and day out to get out a message that matters to me. But like maybe this is the universe's way of giving me a boost. And so I'll take the good and I'll leave the bad, meaning the comments, and I'll just carry on. And I'm not going to make it mean anything more than it does. It occurs to me, this is number 7, it must be real hard to be a comedian or otherwise rely on your views for compensation or just validation. It also must truly suck some days to be really well known and have everything that comes out of your mouth criticized or outright attacked by someone. Like even the word croissant can be weaponized. Like that's where we are. Is that even that word can be weaponized against you. And that must be very difficult. So when you think, oh my God, I want to be famous. I want everyone to know my name. Just think about that a little bit and recognize that if you indeed want that, make sure that you're prepared to have some strong, energetic boundaries around you and know exactly who you are and why you're doing what you're doing and look at the good side of it and try your best to dismiss the not so good. So again, if the increased like 5 likes on a reel or whatever is from someone who got value and is going to be more compelled to keep writing, amazing. And if even one of those 131 new followers isn't a robot and wants to contribute to this community, also amazing. Otherwise, this was fun. But by no means was this any sort of a magic bullet for me. And by the way, those don't exist. Which brings me to my final point, which is that everything in my experience, air quote success and air quote failure, is a flash in the pan. If you think about American Idol and like, it's like, where are some of those people? We just watched the Super Bowl and all anybody was tweeting about, or I'm not on Twitter, but talking about and Googling was, is Rihanna pregnant? Now no one's talking about it because she didn't perpetuate it. She just asked and answered, and now we've all moved on. But that's all anybody was talking about. It was a flash in the pan. And you could argue, I mean, she did all kinds of things during her Super Bowl show to raise, like she was using the compact from her beauty line. She released a new lip gloss or something during it. She was touching her stomach a lot. So you could argue that this was all strategic and planned. But maybe what she wanted was for people to go out and buy her makeup, not talk about whether she was pregnant. You just don't have any control over what people are going to glom onto and go and run with. The onus is on the creator to sustain it. Whether you hit New York Times bestseller, you have a reel go viral, you're on the Super Bowl halftime show stage, it's on you to sustain it. Everyone's going to forget. And that's a great thing when it comes to either, frankly, success or failure, in my opinion. So you can make mistakes. You can post something and not stress for days over how it's going to be received because everyone's going to forget. People will hit the New York Times bestseller list, and then there's an expectation that they keep that shit up. People love touring on book tours, and so they'll imply that you should too. You either do or you don't, and either's fine. Colleen Hoover doesn't do the circuit. Liz Gilbert doesn't do the circuit. And you could argue that they've gotten to the point where they don't have to do the circuit. But you could also argue that if they don't work to stay present, they'll just be forgotten. It's not happening. But you could argue it if you're in a position of fearing that they're going to disappear because maybe you're their agent or their editor or their publisher or their, I don't know. Everything's a flash in the pan. And we wouldn't worry nearly so much about what other people thought of us if we realized how little, meaning how infrequently they actually do. People do things and people get into an uproar and they forget about it a week later or a day later. People go viral and it doesn't matter the next day. I'm still the same exact person. I'm right back to, if you look at the last 3 posts that I've made since that reel went viral, they've all got like 5 likes again. It's a flash in the pan. It doesn't, and I'm just going to keep going. I love what I do. I love what I talk about. I love my community. I love the growth. And that's where my focus is. I don't have any expectations of what that meant, what it was going to do. I'm just going with it. I had no plans to do this podcast today, but here I am because of it. So that's a win for me. I had no plans to go live on Instagram this morning and talk about it, but I did. And I had 9 people there live instead of my regular 2 or 0. That's a win. That's just fun because I enjoy the community and that's what I'm building. A community of people where we can say, we're writing books. We don't always know what we're doing. It feels like this. Should it feel like this? Why does it feel like this? What do I do with this? How do I work through this? How do I grow through this? That's what I am here for. So that's my experience with going viral thus far. If anything major happens going forward, I, of course, will let you know. But that's where we are so far. That is the story of Elizabeth Lyons going viral. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.